What's cracking, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. New video. So, I saw this video. I haven't listened to any of it. I saw it pop up, and this one is called "Who Do Blacks Beef With the Most in Prison?" And he's talking about California prison. Um, and I like this dude's channel. I like his take on things. This is Chill from 16 to Life. I noticed that his views are down, and that's another reason why I wanted to do this video. Um, he puts out good content, man. Very unbiased, very fair. And I did a video recently, about a month or two ago, and I said that the biggest threat to a Southerner in the California prison system is another Southerner. And there were some people that felt offended by that, and I was like, how could someone feel offended by that when Southerners in house are whacking and killing each other all the time? Um, Southerners and blacks, or Southerners and any other faction, they don't engage with each other on a routine basis the way Southerners do Southerners. And to me, every group, the biggest threat to them is their own people. Those are the ones you're gonna have interaction with every day. So I want to see what Chill has to say. I haven't watched any of this. I fast forwarded the beginning. Chill can rap really good. His intro to his channel is him rapping, so I don't want to get a copyright for it. So I skipped up ahead a little bit. But let's get into this video.
See the title, Who Do Blacks Beef With the Most in Prison, right? And it's been, in my experience, that blacks beef with other blacks the most in prison.
And I would agree with that. I just finished saying, whatever group you're from, whatever group you run with, whatever faction in California, they're the biggest threat to you. Yeah, there's other factions that historically may bump heads, but you don't interact with them daily. You interact with who you live with, who you house with, who you run with. That's where the politics are at.
I know a lot of times people get hyped up, or they get more interested in when you have blacks going at it with the Southerners. But for the most part, man, blacks beef with blacks in prison the most, and that has been my experience, right? Like I told you guys, I've done 24 years straight, and in all the prisons, and I'm not talking about the county jails, in all the prisons that I hit, I have never been involved in a racial riot against the Southerners. And actually, as I'm sitting here thinking about it, I've never even been in any prisons that had a racial riot with the blacks and the Southerners on any yard.
Amen. I'm glad Chill said that, because there are so many people in the comment section that obviously, Chill did 24 years. I did 24 years. There are people in the comment section that are always talking about how the Southerners, they have to have numbers to go to war, and the Southerners and the whites and the black. And I'm like, that's why I've said, name some riots for me. In the last 30 years, you're not going to come up with 100 riots. So stop acting like there was 100 riots. You know what I mean? Like, it blows my mind. But you can find thousands and thousands of incidents: Southerners on Southerners, blacks on blacks, Northerners on Northerners, whites on whites, others on others. That's where the most prevalent violence is within your own car. And again, I'm glad that Chill did this. And it's a trip that when I did the video, it was taken as racist. It was taken as a put down to other factions. It was mind blowing. So thank you, Chill, for being honest. He did 24 years, and not once on any yard he was on, he's saying, was there an incident between the blacks and the Southerners? I can't say that, but it doesn't happen as often as people want you to believe.
With the exception of in Ironwood, like maybe around 2003, somewhere around there was a riot between the blacks and the Southerners on B Yard. And that riot on B Yard didn't spread to any other yard, you know. So unless I'm mistaken and not remembering correctly, like I said, the whole entire time. And that's for them. And I'll give you guys a lot of reasons or my opinions on why is that, you know. But like I said, man, in my experience, I have probably either seen what I have seen and been involved. Either I have either seen or and been involved in probably more than at least 15 to 20 black on black riots, or sometimes and they're just melees, but the way the prison, when they write it up, they'll word it as a riot. If it's like more than maybe like a 3-on-3 or a 4-on-4, they'll word it as a riot. But sometimes it's really more of a melee and stuff like that. But when we're talking about either riots or melees, I've seen Crip versus Crip. I've seen Blood versus Crip. I've seen Hoovers versus the neighborhood, Long Beach versus the Long Beaches, Fresno versus the Blood.
I've seen Muslim versus Muslim, Sunni and Shia. I've seen that. I remember when that happened in New Folsom. I was like, "Who's that?" Because of where it was on the yard. I was like, "We were like, who is that?" I said, "Man, that's the Muslims. Muslims fight. Who are they fighting with? The other Muslims." Like, damn. So yeah, you know, stuff like that happens.
Bloods, IE versus the Bloods, IE versus the Compton and Watts. I've even seen in my later years, I've even seen Blood versus Blood, either little riots and melees, which was extremely unusual when I first came to prison, you know. And I'm not talking about DPs, you know. I'm talking about, you know, riots. I'm talking about basically things that broke out at the spur of the moment, or, you know, may have been brewing a day or two, things that was not necessarily, you know, sanctioned like a DP, you know. And I've even seen, you know, I've even seen, man, in-house riots among many cars, you know. When I say in-house, like let's just say you have the Inland Empire functioning as one car. And I've seen where cars will get into it with themselves on the yard, because a lot of times, even though you may have people in prison functioning as one car or one entity, a lot of times that car is made up of an alliance of different gangs on the street.
Yeah, that's the Crips are like that. And I've talked about how when there would be times when I would have to talk to the blacks, the leaders of the blacks on the yard, I could go to one dude for, you know, like, for an example, I could go to one dude from the Bloods. I can go one dude for the Kumi. But for the Crips, I had to talk to 4 or 5 different people, you know, and you know, the cops are watching you go and talk to these different groups, and you know, and it's so much easier when you can talk to one dude, but with them, you just couldn't. The Crips were very fractionalized. They didn't want to hear from certain crews that they didn't get along with, you know, like why that dude talking to you? How come he ain't talking to us? You know, so yeah, it was different.
And you still have dudes within those alliances who don't necessarily like other dudes. Sometimes you'll have alliances in prison who aren't necessarily cordial on the streets, or who have got into it. I've even seen you have dudes in prison who are from the same particular hood and may have grown up together, and this dude may not like that dude. So it's always things going on, you know. And so I honestly want to say, with the exception of the East Coast Crips, I have pretty much seen all gangs have riots or small melees among themselves, you know. And that's just, you know, that's just what it is, man, you know. And it just depends on sometimes what prison that you may go to and who's there. And that's going to dictate how the structure of that particular car is being ran. Like, for example, you know, we know that, or for those of you guys who follow the gang culture, we know that, you know, you have a lot of these gangs who beef with each other. And initially, let me just say this too.
Let me go forward a little bit, um, just to make sure it's not going to be just that.
And so I, like I say, initially I didn't think that my stories would get around like that, but once they did, I thought it would be a little bit more responsible of me to, to try to change some names and this and that. But I said all that to say, we know a lot of these different hoods have sometimes a long history of beef, and so it just all depends. Like now we know in Long Beach, for instance, you have
Okay,
the
so
Rolling 20 Crips, and they have
that's a true story. I think I should just redirect you guys to this channel. Um, hold on a second. What the hell went on? Um, I should probably just redirect you to Phil's channel, and you guys can get the full video. Um, prison in California is very, very segregated. There's a lot of factions, man. And so when they say segregated, it's not just by race. It's by car too. And what he's talking about there is if 100% facts. I would have to talk to a dude from different, even with the Bloods, those that know, there was a 2-letter faction and a 3-letter faction. And I just said, look, I had better rapport with the dude. Well, not better. I really only had rapport with one, and was a dude from the 2-letter faction. And so I would talk to him, and it's still like it got to all the Bloods. Everything was cool. But in talking with the Crips, I would have to talk to a bunch of people. And when you're having a serious conversation, especially on a level 4 180 yard, and you have to go look at when you're doing things and you're on the yard, you're labeled. This is something that, I've never spoken. Maybe I'll make it a separate video. I don't want to really get into it, but just know the Hudas are aware of you, and they're paying attention to who you talk to. So when they see a certain dude talking to several, I did a Wes Watson, I just spit, talking to several different blacks that they as well have been identified or recognized as having some influence, it can turn into a sticky situation as far as what the COs want to do with you. They could just want to snatch you up for having the conversation. They could go on higher alert because of it. It's a trip. But anyways, I'll go ahead and keep this one short. Hopefully, maybe it's better for you guys to go and check out Chill's entire video. I was hoping he would go more into, I had an idea in my head, but it's his channel and he went where he went, and he's breaking down the different groups within the Crips, probably because that's the faction that's the most fractionalized, and there has to be a lot of different people involved. And when you have a lot of people involved, that's when things can get tricky. When we had the riot in Pelican Bay in 2000, the initial discussion I was there for. I wasn't doing any of the talking. I was just asked to basically do some security, go with them. If anything goes sideways, it was going to be in me and him first. And then, and that was just because in the building, the guy that did the disrespect lived in our section, in our building, right? And I know exactly what he said. Everything was completely respectful, but the message that was taken back to their shot callers was completely different. Said that dude was called, that monster was called a rat and all kinds of other things, and it was like that was never said. So when you're dealing with different people might have their own personal agenda and twist things up, and then next thing you know, there is a riot. When had there been proper communication from the jump, whatever the issue was, which was probably small, could have been handled, and everybody continues to make money, get their visits, their packages, whatever. But prison being prison, some people are very, very spiteful, very hateful, And when they can add misery to someone else, it makes them happy. I'm gonna go ahead and end this one here. Everybody, please be safe, be smart, and tell the ones you love that you love them, man.